Hello everyone, welcome all the viewers to this panel discussing today future of disruptive technology, leveraging emerging technology trends for the business success. On the panel we have today Gill Eapen from Decision Option, Shrikant Naik from Quest Global, Saravan Chellamuthu from PepsiCo, Saurabh Biswas from Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, and to lead the discussion, we have Professor Brejesh Lall from IIT Delhi. So, all the attendees, if you have any queries, you can just put it down on the chat box, and towards the end, we'll get them answered by the panel. So, welcoming all again, and over to you, Mr. Brejesh.
Thank you for the introduction. So let's get right into it. We have about 30 minutes of discussion, which will be followed by 6 or 7 minutes of question and answer. So the audience can keep putting their questions in the message box. So let's get to the topic right away. The idea here is leveraging emerging tech trends for business success. And the best way to start with is to understand what these latest techs or advances in technology might be. And for that, who better than Namita from Nasscom to let us know what these trends are. Over to you, Namita, for your views. You might be muted, Namita.
We can't hear you, Namita, just in case you want to unmute yourself.
So while we fix that, I was also hoping that Shravan could give us some insights into this question. So Shravan, maybe we start with you and we'll come back to Namita in a few minutes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Not a worry to pitch in. No, thanks, Brejesh. Thanks. It's a good question. So if you look into this, right, there is no dearth of this technologies in the space. It is just evolving at a rapid pace. I'll go back to the old books of this whole automation and AI, ML. It's continuing to evolve at a pace, and I don't think so. As a business, we have captured the entire potential of it. With the latest trend in this Gen AI, I think this whole world is going bust in this year. We are changing game plans on how to leverage Gen AI to the maximum productivity as well, right? So while we talk about the business, uh, this Gen AI is giving us immense opportunity to automate IT for IT. Me coming from an IT team, especially quite often intrigued about how do I automate our business better, and there is no better way than leveraging on the Gen AI and the co-pilots that Microsoft is delivering. Quite essentially on this GitHub is just like thought-provoking and how can I bring the code efficiency down and show some productivity over there. But beyond that, as a PepsiCo, from my point of view and the PepsiCo lens, we are a very big agricultural company, not just a foods company. Our source starts from agriculture. We're doing a lot of automation to really drive digital agriculture. How do we get to the future of getting more produce out of the same thing, and what does it mean in terms of not just the digital automation, the industrial automation connected to the IoT, connected to the digital platforms, and drive insights. And it's exciting times to be here at this time. Right from the source thing to the packaging to the warehousing to the manufacturing and to the end consumers. Digital is all prevalent, and technology is helping us to go precise and understand each and every step of the process.
Yeah, thank you for those thoughts, Shravan. Clearly, technology is going to play a key role. It's already started playing a key role. And if you can hear Namita's thoughts, if the glitch is fixed, Namita, back to you, please. I think we still have an issue. So never mind. We'll come back to Namita once it's fixed. Now, what I was also looking for is to get an idea of something that's very industry specific. So he is a products engineering company head, and he has to look after a lot of product engineering possibilities. So could you give us some specific examples of how these advancements are happening, and so what's the trend?
Yeah. Thanks, Professor Lall. Am I coming through?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, that's
Yeah.
great. So in my job, I indulge in engineering, product engineering in various verticals. So starting from aerospace and defense and energy and rail and automotive and medical devices, high tech, as well as semiconductors. And it's been an absolutely fantastic time to be in product engineering space, to be precise, Professor, um, because the adoption of various technologies and skills coming together and blurring the lines of a divide of various engineering discipline is really, really helping us to shorten the developmental time, because some of these verticals I'm involved in, for example, aerospace, it's a very, very long developmental time traditionally, to design and develop and bring it to the certification of an aircraft. It takes like anywhere between 7 to 10 years. And then with the advent of technology, we are able to shorten the whole developmental cycle, as well as the product itself is in a much better condition, right? And some of the examples, it's amazing, it's mind-boggling. In fact, UK currently is developing a sixth generation fighter aircraft. And if you look up the internet about the specification of that aircraft, it's mind-boggling. It's kind of a what you can see in a sci-fi movies, and then how old school traditional engineering and new pervasive technologies coming together, and what wonders it is making is it's amazing. So, and then when we go from 30,000 feet high in the sky to 30,000 feet below the ground, how do we extract oil? The directional drilling, how the drill can go 20,000 feet straight down vertical and change its direction to find and extract wherever the oil is. And the mechanical elements of that, the electronics, the embedded systems. Remember when you go 20,000 feet into the core of the earth, the temperature is very high. The electronics needs to be very high temperature electronics, multi-layer boards, and software going into that, taking the seismic forces. It's all amazing. And the another thing is what we're talking about, sustainability and ESG. There are a lot of engineering can help in those areas as well. So, for example, carbon capture is a newest thing, and then a lot of technological advancements can be applied there as well. So the newer and leaner fuels like hydrogen, the world is going towards electric vehicles, electric powered everything, as well as hydrogen. Now, how do you generate hydrogen in a clean way? How do you store the hydrogen, and how do you generate electricity using hydrogen and stuff like that? As I said, it's a amalgamation and a marriage of traditional technologies and all the new age pervasive technologies, like whether it is AI, ML, generative AIs, and all those things coming together. It's absolutely fantastic. One last thing I want to add is the world. Some of the machines, some of the old age products are decades old, multiple decades old, but still running thick and fine. And this what we call it as a dumb machines. And then there's a huge opportunity in engineering to convert those, instead of throwing those machines away, convert those machines, dumb machines, into smart machines. Sensorization, getting the signals, IIoT, and then data. We have like terabytes of data. What do we do with that data? And data and cloud and cyber security, all these things are very, very important of making the dumb machines into smart machines. So I would like to repeat, the world has never been a better place for product engineering practices and technologies. I'm so excited about that. And then I hope many of the engineers come together with various disciplines, and this journey even more exciting, Professor.
Thank you, Shri, for those very interesting examples, and they seem to cover the whole spectrum of businesses that are out there. So while we wanted Namita to give us examples of some of the latest advancements, we've heard a bit about that already. So in interest of time, what I'll rather ask her to do is Now, how is this becoming important for business success? How does it sort of take the game away from competition, and it's almost become a necessity for a business to become a success? So, Namita, if you could answer this in that light, please, for the benefit of the audience.
Sure. Professor Lall, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes. And
I'm extremely apologetic for the technical glitch. Great to be on this platform with everyone. So I think some of the ideas, and I could hear some of the ideas shared were very, very transformative. What that means for all of us today, up till Jan, we were probably talking a lot about multitude of technologies. There was Web 3.0, there was Metaverse, there was AI, but there was no generative AI, so to speak. And then suddenly the entire paradigm has shifted in the last 6 to 7 months, and we are squarely focused. However, when we did some of our studies on emerging technology and how the world is spending on emerging technologies, particularly the end user side, the non-tech sector, there is still a lot of ground to be covered when it comes to digital technologies that we consider mainstream. So to answer, for example, cloud, cybersecurity, connectivity technologies, robotics, automation, right? We may consider them to have become mainstream, but there's a lot more innovation that continues to happen even when we talk about Web3 or quantum or connected wearables or smart homes, etc., and generative AI now. So I think to answer your question as to what does it mean for businesses and enterprises, there's absolutely no running away from the fact that technology is changing really fast. What that means is one, how will organizations respond as a cohesive whole to it? This is no more about, and we all saw the spike in terms of digital transformation spending in 2021. When we dug deeper, we realized that a lot of that spending was spread across multiple technologies, but really it was all about POCing or experimenting. It wasn't really spend oriented towards going deep into specific use cases, either vertically or horizontally, right? Now, suddenly after that spike, we are actually beginning to see enterprises become a lot more focused. And what that means is that one, your investments have to be really thought through from an outcome lens, right? It's no more about experimenting and figuring out the right product market fit and taking it from there. It's really about outcome. And that means that most businesses are having to think about what their competitive positioning is in their sector and certain adjacencies which could actually creep into the sector. Technology has actually made those adjacencies very, very, I would say, volatile, very dynamic. So those factors have to come in. There is a play of talent here in terms of emerging technologies, and that is also redefining what businesses can do and can do in the long term. So I think from to answer your question, yes, there is no running away from what is emerging. One, second, organizations have to be at the top of the game, even though it might mean a very focused, controlled approach, but that strategy, that the mindset has to be there in order to be flexible, in order to embrace that change very quickly. And three, there needs to be a forward-looking talent strategy.
right. Thank you so much. Finally we hear from her, and this the fact that she had to speak later probably added to the value she could add to it. Something that I've heard all three talk about is digital transformation, IoT. Those are words, and AI, ML. Those are words that kept coming up again and again. So digital transformation seems to be something that's quite integral to this emerging tech trend thing that we're talking about. So I'll now go through a couple of panelists and check with them if they do believe that digital transformation and business transformation seem to be going hand in hand, and for some time to come at least we'll see them grow together. So let's go to Saurabh first, and I'll come back to a couple of other panelists.
Thanks, Brejesh, and thanks, team, for having me on this call. I think I'll begin by stating that I completely agree with and allude to all the panelists who have spoken thus far. giving a perspective from an industry I come from, which is the pharmaceutical industry, very, very highly regulated industry, so to say. I can say, and I have been a part of this industry for almost a decade now with Dr. Reddy's. What I see is digital transformation is something which is not no more a good to have feature for any organization per se, but it is more of a ticket to play and win in the market. That's how we are looking at it at Dr. Reddy's. It helps us become ambidextrous in a sense that it helps us become more productive and at the same time more innovative. Productive in terms of being able to do things better, and innovative in terms of being able to do things differently, right? So let me substantiate this through our value chain, which primarily comprises of three basic elements. We have a large set of investments which are there in the research and development area, where we are trying to develop molecules and new drugs or reverse engineer complex drugs, so to say. And then we have this manufacturing and supply chain element, where we are trying to scale it up at a much bigger scale, able to produce repeatable and reproducible batches, and then ship it across multiple nationalities, multiple geographies to an effective supply chain network. And eventually, then, with the help of marketing teams, are able to create depth and breadth in the market for the products that we are offering. Right. So these are the three primary value chain elements. Now, digital, as all our panelists rightly mentioned, is deeply embedded in the business strategy, so to say, and has got a direct parallel from or a derivative from the business strategy in the sense of being able to make sure that we are productive and efficient in each part of the value chain, both individually as well as collectively. If I do a double click on, let's say, R&D, which is one of my favorite areas, and I have been a part of R&D for biosimilars and small molecules for quite some time now. I see there has been a tremendous foray in the area of being able to first curate data at scale, and then our abilities to be able to harness this data, to be able to interrogate this data for insights which are leading to actions. And with the emergence of new technologies, be it in the space of, let's say, large language models, talking about generative AI on content based analytics, or number crunching when it comes to being able to do virtual experiments in the lab as against doing physical experiments by creating machine learning models which are both thriving on structured and unstructured data. There's a significant amount of shift that we are able to see in our abilities to be able to do much better than what we used to do earlier. In terms of outcomes, I think the entire exercise for digital transformation will be possible only if we start with the outcomes. For us, let's say in R&D, if I were to talk about outcomes, the single goal is to be able to have speed, capacity, predictability, and cost. These are the four elements which are very, very important for an R&D to thrive and generate a lot of value added service for the organization. So all our efforts in the digital transformation space are in identifying those magical use cases across the value chain, which will help us produce the drug significantly faster than what we used to do at a point in time. Our ability to be able to predict outcome of, let's say, various clinical and bio studies, which is where the element of predictability comes into picture, without having to do much trials, right, and spending much lesser than what we used to do earlier. Our ability to be able to scale up drugs to the manufacturing locations much in a manner which is much better. So the right first time element going significantly above, so that we are able to understand our drugs and our manufacturing folks are able to scale it up, again leveraging multiple facets and dimensions of data. And then the whole element of the cost, where we are trying to see how data can play a big role in terms of reducing the development costs of the drugs. And in doing so, there are multiple use cases. I will not take much time, but I can maybe talk about few which currently we are very, very heavily invested in. For example, this whole construct of synthetic data complementing real life data to be able to develop models, because developing R&D data ain't cheap, right? So how can we augment real life R&D data with in silico data to be able to predict outcomes is something we are actively working on, and a lot of models are being built in those spaces. Can we do virtual biostudies to be able to predict outcomes of biostudies on human subjects and animals, so to say? That's another space we are looking at. On the manufacturing side, we are heavily investing in the space of digital twins. While this was something which was already there, and I was hearing Shrikant in the aerospace sector, in the automotive sector, but this is also gaining a lot of traction in the pharmaceutical sectors, primarily in the space of injectables and parenteral products, where we are trying to see how we can put executable digital twins to practice in the manufacturing locations. in terms of being able to leverage large language models to be able to summarize and create content, because we are also a very text heavy organization and a text heavy function. We do a lot of filings in different regulated markets, which is a lot of textual content that gets generated. So how can we have large language models come and play a role in our abilities to be able to file in markets the right amount of information which is right for us. So these are some of the dimensions and examples where we believe we are investing a lot, obviously keeping the end objective in mind, which is capacity, predictability, and cost, and hence very, very tightly integrated to the organizational transformation mandate. So I don't see digital transformation as a separate track, so to say. It's a force multiplier. It's a capability building asset that every organization should have at its disposal to be able to realize its business strategy. That's what I believe.
Right. Thank you so much, Saurabh. That's quite interesting. A lot of important technologies that are required for business success have been alluded to, and this is for a particular industry. So that's interesting to know. Now, if you look at this question from a different perspective, and I want to go to Shri for that. Now, when you're looking at nearly 24 product engineering verticals, does the digital transformation become easier, tougher, more important, less important? So what are your thoughts? Clearly, in an industry that is cutting edge and very, very pointed, digital transformation seems to be playing a very, very important role. How would that change or remain the same for an organization like yours?
Yeah. So, Professor, digital transformation is no more a buzzword or nice to have thing in the marketplace. So I think every industry has to embrace the digital transformation. Forget about be on being keep it as a differentiator, but even to sustain in the industry, it has become a must, and we're almost there. Then industries, the companies in the product engineering space who have successfully utilized digital transformation in the developmental cycle, testing cycle, certification cycle, I think hugely benefited from edge over a competition in terms of time to market. I think it's very, very important. Some of the long lead developmental cycle, like aerospace or rail kind of industry. So it can always, the digital transformation can start at the conceptual stage itself, wherein we spoke about digital twin, and then if we can, we used to do something called as a concurrent engineering, and then if we use digital transformation into the concurrent engineering, we can start building the digital twin at the very beginning itself, and the whole developmental cycle can less than 30% of its original time. And then also in that process, there is a lot of computations in terms of product validation and stuff like that is always exist. Sometimes all these finite element models in the mechanical engineering space can take up huge computational time and power. Then new techniques like quantum computing and things like that, which can really get the computing done in a fraction of a second, which forms the part of the digital transformation, but then really shave off a lot of time in the whole development process, and can give much more accurate results, so that the design can be much accurate, much safer, and so on and so forth. So it's not only from the developmental cycle perspective, the digital transformation is very, very important, but post developmental, in service and aftermarket services also in many of the products, this digital transformation makes huge things, because again, as I said, a lot of data has been generated. Once the product is in service, and that data can be analyzed in multiple ways, and to make it to extend the product life itself, as well as the next developmental cycle much more accurate, because we have ton of data, and then we have ability to process that data, and then we can use all the artificial intelligence and machine learning models to make it much better. So overall, I think, as I said, digital transformation is a must in the product development space, product engineering space. It's no more a fancy thing, and whoever doesn't use that will be left behind, and that's a new reality of life, Professor.
Thank you, Sri. So what's coming out is rather than good to have, it's more of a must-have. So, digital transformation or the other emerging trends, they have to find their way very, very quickly into the way you do your work. Otherwise, it will be a very, very hard game to play. Now, this brings me to Gill, whose expertise has been in areas of enabling efficient adoption, and he also has a lot of background in the area of best practices and strategies for making businesses successful. So Gil, could you sort of educate us on is there a good way to adopt these technologies into the businesses?
Yes, I would rather listen to all this young people. I don't know too much about it. So just give you a history. So I was at IIT Chennai in the mid 80s, and for Tube Products of India, which is a large manufacturer in Chennai, south of Chennai, we created a Fortran-based, now called artificial intelligence, then called expert systems, to optimize industrial building design. So essentially, you say what you want to do, and then it will basically make the design for you. I came to Northwestern in the mid 80s, and we created an IBM PC and Pascal based expert system, now called artificial intelligence. I don't exactly know what it means. That allows graduate students in engineering to design efficient buildings. I did quite a bit of work in FEM and CFD. So I'm just going to give you the history, where you could actually have AI, as it's called now, to create very efficient models in FEM and CFD in the late 80s and early 90s. This was before Google founders were born, unfortunately. And so AI started, I would say, in India in the 80s. Not many people know that. And so generally, things have been developing. We have a lot of computing power. We have a lot of memory. We don't have a lot of mathematics developed in this area. So, most of the stuff that we do now is based on mathematics that we have been developing for the last 30, 40, 50 years. There isn't, machine learning is a fancy term for statistical modeling. Deep learning is a fancy term for neural networks. Both of these things have started 30, 40, 50 years ago. So what we have now is a lot of computing power, cheap computing power, a lot of memory, and we can actually do interesting things now, which is also quite interesting, right? So I go to, so look at India, for example, what this conference is all about, which is there's a lot of data, a lot of enterprises are holding data, and companies are not really using that data efficiently. So that is where, whatever you want to call it, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, whatever you want to call it, it is fundamentally about using data to make better decisions. And we are not doing that really well. And so India has a great opportunity to sort of do that, to leapfrog the world, which is, how do we use data to make better decisions? Senior managers make gut-based decisions typically, and they think they're really good at it. They're awful. They're really awful. I worked with very large companies last 30 years, and they're really, really bad at it. So data is going to influence decisions. And the question for a country like India is, can you actually leapfrog that idea with technology? I believe they can. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So that is quite promising as far as countries like India are concerned, because here seems to be an opportunity. Efficient adoption possibly is not as difficult as it was probably 15 or 20 years ago, and it seems to be right up our alley. The kind of areas that we are traditionally good at seem to be the areas that people need to focus on. So that's good news. And before I move to the final question of the panel discussion, uh, I just want another perspective of efficient adoption, this time from from Shravan, as to how PepsiCo probably did this for their organization at some stage. They would have done it multiple times, but a most recent adoption of tech.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think great insights, Gill, Shrikant, very insightful to hear from you all. So if I look into this technology adoption into PepsiCo, I think I would put this way, right? We don't call it two different things, business transformation or digital. We call it as digital business transformation, right? It's all about how am I going to use technology to go more precise. And when I say precise, it's all about data, right? How do I get data, more data, in a way that I never thought I would get the data? So for instance, we try to understand the consumer data, footfall data from CCTV cameras. Gone are the days where you really need to understand from somewhere what to do with this. We used to get the consumer reports from Nielsen in the past, but now we can generate our own footprints and understand the footprints of the consumer preferences, right? So we have millions of consumer preferences in our own system to understand the data precisely more, right? So we deal with 7.5 million acres of land to get our produce that we need to use in PepsiCo. And that's a big land, right? I think that's as much as a state of Uttar Pradesh, if you will. And now we are putting all the IoTs everywhere, wherever we can be possible, to understand the pattern of the climate, the soil, and predict the yield. Predicting the yield is still not there yet. It's not perfected. I'm trying to do something to make sure that hey, if I can know what I can get the produce from the land and the bottom of the ground, then I can better manage my supply chain around. So as I was alluding to, PepsiCo is a large industrial company, from agricultural produce into our manufacturing footprint, into the transportation engine, into the consumers, and we serve about 1 billion consumers every day, right? So we deal at a bigger scale, and each and every area, I would say there's a lot of technology proliferation, and every year we try to change that technology proliferation with the new age technology. And as Namita pointed out, we're doing a lot of POCs now in all these areas to see how Jain AI can help, right? And Jain AI can look into my transportation data. North America alone, we have about 50,000 plus trucks that crisscrosses around. What is the data I'm getting there? Can I do something different to change the business process for its betterment, right? Not just in terms of being productive, but it also in terms of how can I be more efficient? How can I be more sustainable? So there's a whole lot of things that are happening with technology, and I can very much say it is well ingrained. And I think I see another question, Professor, if I can add to that, how business users are adopting it. So for me, it is like different answer to the set of users I interact with. Gen X, yes, they are reluctant. You have to coach them, make them digital quotient, and move on. And knowledge, digital worker, the Gen Y, you have to feed them more with technology. Else they're not staying in the company. So which means that there is a more pull over here than the push, and the less you feed them, they're not interested anymore. So it's an interesting work where I would say it's more of the digital workers. Everyone is becoming digital workers. We are also leveraging platform economies a lot, right? When I say platform economies, IT as a function within a company, we are becoming more of a platform team. We provide a platform with the right tools and right capabilities, and everyone who is conducting businesses, transacting, is a product creator. It's a digital product creator, right? So if you want to create your own product, we are enabling a no-code platform. You can do your own magic to create your automation. You can do your own things to do certain things out. So that's where we are going behind to generate every PepsiCo individual to become a digital worker or by themselves, empower themselves through the technology and create the magic that Saurabh was talking about, right? The magic is in everyone's hand now.
Yeah, thank you. So that is quite neat, because PepsiCo, like you said, you call it business digital transformation, and you try to do something, incorporate something new every year, and you keep learning from it, and not all decisions are correct, and you learn from it and correct it in the next incorporation of tech. So that's good to know, because correction and improvement go hand in hand. There are times when we need correction. Now, as this thing gets interesting, there's another point that Saurabh, Shravan talked about, which is of interest to me, is about the Gen X and Gen Y, which brings me to the talent, the human resource, who does play a key role in this whole scheme of things. And I keep hearing from people in the industry that while we have talented people, they probably aren't skilled or they aren't trained, and we don't get the right fit, and we have to train them, and then once they're trained, they might want to move. So where is what role does talent play in this entire scheme of things? And I'd like to start with Namita here, as she's seen a lot of this while in Nasscom. So where is India, and what is it that we can do here? This time
It's
you
still
probably
muted. Yeah.
This time you're probably muted, Namita.
Can you
Hopefully.
hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
So I'd like to bring a couple of lenses here. One is how do we look at talent overall? Now, we're talking a lot about digital transformation, and that requires talent which is slightly differently trained from traditional tech, right? So just to give you some sense of the numbers, if we talk about India and if we talk about the workforce, let's say in the technology sector, we have about 5.4 billion people employed. Out of that, about 36% or roughly 2 million we say are digitally skilled. What that means is there would be a combination of skills based on cloud or AI, ML, big data analytics, AR, VR, etc. that we would have in those 2 million people vis-a-vis the traditional apps development of the systems integration, etc. Now, do we think that that number is enough? Maybe not. But let me put another perspective. When we look at the demand supply gap, and we look at globally at the demand supply gap of digital talent, I think there India is relatively better positioned. Now, again, coming to your point where we say there is adequate talent, this is the perspective that proves that there is abundant talent, right? We don't have that higher demand supply gap. We are probably lower compared to most of the advanced countries. Particularly if you drill down into AI talent or Web3 talent, we are probably the second or the third highest, and the demand supply gap is the lowest in India when we compare it to a US or a China or Europe in general, right? However, when we drill down a little deeper and we look at some of these more important technologies like AI or big data or data science overall, then we see the breakdown of the fresh intake or the fresh STEM graduates, people with some amount of domain knowledge, and experts, right? Experts, I would say, are people who've spent time honing their skills in that technology plus the domain combination for at least 10 years or so. A lot of our most of our panelists there. So when we look at that breakdown, I think our fresh intake is about one third, and that probably explains why, while we have that abundance, so we have the base of the pyramid, a very broad base of the pyramid, we have a very sharp, convergence towards the top. And what that means is that we don't have broad domain plus technical skills with the expertise or the depth of expertise, so to speak. And that is one area that we've consistently been seeing across emerging tech, and where there have been a lot of initiatives even internally from Nasscom on trying to build that depth in India.
Right. Thank you. So, while I want to go through the other panelists with this question, but we are short of time, and there seem to be a few questions that the audience is asking. So I'll start taking audience questions as well. While we try to wind this panel discussion up. So, okay. So there are correct. So there's this very interesting question, very pertinent as well. technology trends are changing so rapidly. How can professionals keep up? So do I have a volunteer or should I pick one?
So I can,
I can.
Yeah.
go,
So
go, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, Shri, go ahead, please. You raise your hand the first. So
All right. So, I smiled at it because, there is so much out there in the market. And then, if, we want, one wants to go out and do everything, I think this particular life is not sufficient, right? And I'm kind of an old school guy. I always believe in strengthening your core and venturing into your adjacencies, and also believe in strengthen your strength and weaken your weaknesses, right? So, just for the audience, if you look up the internet, search for hype cycle. Gartner produces hype cycle every now and then, and a lot of technologies are hyped up, and then it goes up the hype and then suddenly fall off the cliff. And many, if you look at the last few years, many of the technologies are, we were talking about, hey, this is going to be the technology of the future, and then suddenly they disappeared right from the marketplace. And then that technology curve goes up like this, comes down, and there is a second wave, and then some of the technologies catch the second wave, and whichever the technology catches the second wave really makes a huge difference in the marketplace. So my suggestion to the audience and young engineers is to not to bother and worry about everything exciting and out there, but then pick and choose your technology upgradation, which is adjacent to your core, and build your core and venture into the next thing. That's one way of looking at it. Or other way looking at it, do a good research on what are the things you want to transform yourself from the digital transformation perspective, and then go out and put full energy and enthusiasm into that and make a difference. But then never try to make become a jack of all but master of none, and try and pick one or two and then go deep into that. What I call it as a old school, um, inch wide, mile deep, rather than mile wide, inch deep. So that would be my suggestion, and audience.
yeah, thank you so much, Reed. That was, I'm sure, quite useful. There's another very pertinent question. Now, this question is, PepsiCo is doing amazing work, but is tech transformation only for large organizations like yours? What can smaller businesses do to undertake change, or should they even try to do that?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? So I would put the other way around. Large organizations like this are Titanic ships. It takes effort to pivot to any transformation. So, we have to do a lot of programs like digital pivot to educate so many users, so many people in our ecosystem to slowly start to move. In one of these thought process, right, we also learn from the small companies, because the small companies are digital starters, right? They start with digital. You start with your cloud, you start with your thought process on how do you make it asset light, how do you grow from that asset light into doing something meaningful, sustainable, etc. So we also look into, the question is other way around. Yes, the small companies are the influencers for us. We work with a lot of startups, for that matter, to understand how to leverage technology in a different way. We acquire a lot of small scale businesses, not just to acquire, but also to learn from them, primarily to understand how their thinking model is, how we can use our muscle power to scale them up and grow them up, and in turn we will have that knowledge within the PepsiCo world too, right? So my answer to you, Satish, is different way around. We learn a lot from that reverse mentoring of the small startups and the companies that start with digital front, and the big companies are benefiting out of it. And when I say some of these things like agriculture and etc., we are very cognizant of the fact that there are not a lot of players in agriculture, consumers who can introduce digital and transform themselves, and that's where companies like PepsiCo, we are trying to do the POCs with a whole lot of startups and academics, and then once it is matured, we are in the form of giving it to the farmers, giving it to the agronomists to make themselves use of it, right? So that's another way of also thinking around how to share the wealth and grow the future of the world.
Right. Thank you. So hope that helps. I'll take one more question that I see here, and then I'll come back to some closing comments. So this, I'd like Gail, you to take this question. It is, this person's interested to know that uh, fast-paced changes are difficult to incorporate. So, are there resistances that you see amongst business users because you keep advising people? Is there resistance, and in case there is, how do you advise them, or which way do you advise them?
So I would say change is fast paced. There is no way to get around it. For 100,000 years, we have been on a slope that is a sort of slow pace. We invented agriculture 6,000 years ago that gave most people diabetes, unfortunately. So fast pace is a given. There is no way to get around it. And so if you cannot change fast enough, you will be done. You'll be done with it. This is a Fortune 100 company in the US. This is, the great companies in India or China or whatever. If you cannot adopt to change, you're done. You're going to go bankrupt in a matter of years. And so, so fast change is what you need to worry about. Change is happening. AI is going to take over everything. They're not going to be any factory-based jobs. There are going to be any financial industry jobs. AI is taking over financial industry as well. And so ultimately, it's about what is the competence that you bring to the table. And AI is going to be quite good at many of those.
Okay, good. So fast-paced change is a reality, and so there might be resistance, but it isn't something that you should give into. Even if there is resistance within yourself or your organization, you should oppose it and you should work with the change. Now, before we close, there's one thing that I wanted the panelists to comment, and I'll just go to one panelist here because we've sort of run out of time, and I'll request Saurabh to tell us a few things about, do initiatives like the Billion Dreams help, or are there other things that we can do for getting more talent into the game? A few pointers there before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess platforms like Billion Dreams can, serve as a place where supply meets demand. I mean, there is enough and more in terms of asking, which is coming from multiple industries in this particular space, given the prominence it is taking. I was hearing to Namita's point of view, while I completely agree with her on the, tech availability being, sufficient and there is no dearth of, supply, so to say. Where I see opportunities and areas where we need to really ramp up are the elements of business translators. I mean, people who are in that sweet spot of having a knowledge of the domain as well as a good understanding of the technology as well, so that they're able to apply this technology to that particular process because they come from that domain. I mean, this kind of a skill set is something which every industry in today's date is in need of. While there is no dearth of, let's say, a data scientist, there are dearth of business translators who are able to translate a business problem into a data problem and then co-create solutions which can then create a deeper impact. I believe platforms like a Billion Dreams can actually service these requirements much better than, so to say, old school tailor-made focused platforms which are like, run of the mill stuff is being provided. There's a lot of context to the job description these days. The work primarily will be done by AI. I agree to what Gill was telling, but I also believe that people need to change themselves and start thinking differently to be able to coexist with these AI solutions, to be able to deliver value. So that piece around coexistence would need them to be able to open up, accept the change, rather than focusing on trivial many, focus on vital fews, which I believe Shrikant was speaking about. Right? Don't be a jack of all trades and master of none kind of a thing, but then try and understand the domain well, and also try and see how the applicability of digital science related aspects can be put to the process to create value. And I think this is the need of the hour, and these are the spaces where at least we are seeing a lacuna in terms of supply of talent, and hence forums like these can be a very good forum to be able to reach out to the right folks who are hearing us, and very open to be able to provide a conducive environment for them to incubate their ideas, thoughts, and hence create shared success for the organizations.
Right. Thank you. So there we have it. Now we've run out of time, even though the discussion's still very interesting, but we can't go on any further. We've almost run 10 minutes over time. There are a couple of more questions, but we can't take any more. So let me just sort of summarize what we've heard the experts say. One thing that is loud and clear is that the emerging trends will need to be embraced. The second thing that is clearly being said by everybody is that the change may be fast paced, but you cannot close your eyes to it. You have to react to it. The third thing that came out from PepsiCo's effort is that even a big company like PepsiCo has to be consistent. It has to look at minor mistakes that it makes while it does those major overhauls and corrects them uh, iteratively. So uh, as far as the businesses are concerned, there is no denying and no wishing away emerging tech. You have to embrace them, and that's a reality. The other aspect that was brought out by the panelists very clearly was that in this changing world, the expectation from the workforce is changing as well, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. You don't really need to worry. You just need to be aware, and if you are that, the sky is the limit. So it's on that note, which has been very positive for the organizations as well as for the workforce. I would like to close the panel discussion by thanking all the experts for excellent thoughts and comments. I'm sure the audience will benefit immensely from what they've told us. Thank you very much, every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.